Great. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Super excited to be here with GMAT Club to talk to you about how to get into Harvard Business School. So thanks everyone for joining. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them and type them in. We'll try to get to as many questions as we can. Anything we can't get to, of course, we'll try to get to it a little bit later on. So I'll give a quick introduction to myself for those who don't know me yet. My name is Scott Edinburgh. I'm the founder of Personal MBA Coach. I'm lucky to be joined by actually my best friend and my first client ever, Raja. I don't know that he's ever done a webinar with us, but Raja was the first guy that I got into Harvard Business School many years ago. So he won't have the most recent data, but still smart and successful guy. So he'll be joining us in a few minutes. So a little bit about us. This is our core team. So I'm Scott. I'm the founder. I went to MIT for undergrad, Wharton for my MBA. I've been running Personal MBA Coach since 2008. Former board of directors for AGAC. AGAC is the Association of International Graduate Admissions Consultants. If you're looking to hire a consultant to go through the process, make sure it's an AGAC member. There's a lot of knowledge we get. We meet with admissions directors regularly, analyze fake profiles, a lot of different things at conferences, internal conversations about essays and profiles. I run the company with my sister, Erin Want, who's a former Bain consultant and got into Yale SOM with a pretty big scholarship. A couple of our folks as well, MJ Shores, former Wharton and UCLA admissions director, and also Frank is a former Kellogg admissions director who's the current head of MBA recruiting for Deloitte. And then we have other consultants. We have other top MBA graduates from top schools as well. So a little bit about us. So top ranked in the world, and also the #1 boutique firm. Overall, our clients get in with a 96% success rate over 17 years. Sorry, a little bit sick now. And last year we got over 11 million in scholarships as well. And so based on our size, I think that's some of the highest numbers out there. So a little bit more about us, and then we'll talk more about our services at the end, and leave most of this presentation be to talk about Harvard and how to get in. So you can get direct, founder, support. So there are folks that I'm working with as my client, and then other folks that I'm not working with, might be MJ's client. But even so, we read things and, analyze things and sort of weigh in on feedback, regularly. The whole team meets multiple times a week to talk through each client, where they are, any sort of questions, challenges. And we have some pretty detailed essay guides. So the guides are written either by former admissions directors. Our Harvard guide, I think it's like 7 or 8 pages. Some really top tutors for those who want help on the test. I know many of you have an amazing score already, but if you need some help, it's a great time to get started. We have a few more spots this year. We'll be on a wait list soon. But in-house software to use to guide through the sessions with modules, sample questions, thousands of answers, full-length exams. Our editors are all advanced degrees, PhDs, masters from top Ivy League schools, Harvard and on down, and we edit 7 days a week. Then we also have a team of former interviewers who are actually just coordinating. I was just writing an interview guide for Wharton. Why am I talking about Wharton on the Harvard webinar? Well, you'll probably be applying to other schools as well. Wharton just came out with their interviews today, so I was just writing up our guide for all of our folks. We'll have a former Wharton TBD interviewer that will conduct that. So we can help you with all the parts of the process when figuring out your story. Planning ahead, right? A lot of people are starting early. A lot of people are starting now for round 2. It's not too late if you're applying to round 2. Some people are thinking, is this the right time? When is it too early? When is it too late? Right? I'm getting a lot of questions about that. If you're applying in round 2 and you're watching this live, right? It's October 24th. If you're watching this on December 24th, maybe it is too late. But if you're watching it now or close to now, there's still time to do it. And actually, Harvard is one example that I use. Harvard released their essays around June 25th of this year, right? And the essays were new, and we'll talk about them in a minute. And so for people that had to submit by early September, they had about 2 months, maybe 2 months plus a week or change until they're due. That's the exact time you have from now. So if you're sitting there thinking, it might be kind of late, it's not. Nobody in round 1 had any more time to apply than you have. So definitely still enough time to go through the essay questions. If you're applying early, we have profile building packages where we can help you to think through what do you want to do to make yourself more marketable, building up nonprofits, create guides for how to start a nonprofit, think through certain orgs you want to get involved in, really honing up your profile. If you want to think about this, between now and when you're, applying, that would be great. So I'm going to do a quick introduction to Raj. So Raja, thanks so much for joining. As I mentioned earlier, Raja is my best friend, my first client that I got into Harvard many, many years ago. And so we will tap him a little bit later on in the presentation to just ask questions about, like, what's Harvard like? Any other pieces of advice, as a very successful alumni. But maybe, Raj, if you want to just give a quick introduction about yourself.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. I went to MIT and graduated in 2005 with Scott. And we grew to become best friends and have been best friends since. It turns out that I was also his first client. And because of that, got into HBS. I applied early. And, the part of my application that was really that I needed the most help with was essays. I had good scores and grades and whatnot. But just the short answers and the essays and just kind of how to really position myself. And Scott was just critical in that whole process. My background, I did what's called 6-2 and 14 at MIT, which is computer science and electrical engineering and economics. And 15, which is management and a minor in economics. And then I've been in private equity since. So basically almost for 18 years or so. So I went to a firm called Metalmore Capital, worked at TPG Capital for 2 years, did buyouts, worked at Blackstone for 6 years, did buyouts. And then along with another classmate from MIT 06 and HBS 11 as well, started my own private equity fund within TPG. That first fund is 1.6 billion in size, does minority stakes in tech businesses. And that fund was a top decile fund. And now we're investing out of our second fund, which is 3.4 billion. So that's my background. Look forward to, and anyone should feel free to ask any questions. I'd love to, chat with anyone. The HBS and MBA experience has been just so invaluable to me. It just words can't describe in terms of networking, what I learned, it getting me into, I was able to try the hedge fund career and, try different things, and knew that I just wanted to do during the summers in between first and second year. And that was critical in me being able to successfully start a very, very large private equity fund. So sorry, that was a little long, but look forward to chatting with folks whenever I guess there's a question session.
Super helpful. And so Raja graduated HBS 2011, so a few years ago.
Oh, right. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. 2011 graduation year. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. So definitely example, a lot of you have goals and interests and like starting your own thing someday, so you can definitely do that. So we'll ask Raja questions as we go to kind of get more of his knowledge. But let's dive into it about the essay questions, right? So Harvard changed the essays, as I'm sure everyone knows at this point. And it's now 3 essays. So business-minded essay, reflect on how your experiences have influenced your career choices and aspirations and the impact you will have on the businesses, organizations, and communities you plan to serve. That's a lot, right? So Harvard is interesting, and we know Harvard really well. I'm friendly with the multiple HBS professors that live nearby. We'll chat with admissions. It's a very specific school. It's a very interesting school, and they want to think. They want you to think, right? They want you to go in depth. Now, years ago, they had for many, many years, right, this open-ended question. And what happened was admissions directors were getting a lot of great stories. Okay, grandma and her challenges and what you did and poverty and like all these really, really big things. But they weren't getting as much of, are you going to be a good student? Are you going to be a leader? Why are you actually going to be valuable to HBS? So they sort of went back to the basics, right? This is the goals essay. Now, there are a lot of words, and yes, you have to think about communities, but this is essentially a goals essay. We'll talk more about this in a minute. Essay 2, they title it Leadership-Focused Essay. It's about leadership, right? Obviously, Harvard likes leaders, and they want to bring leaders, and they want to facilitate and train leaders and have you leave being a better leader. So what experiences have shaped who you are, how you invest in others, and what kind of leader you want to become? Very, very straightforward. We'll talk more about this as well in a second. And then there's just growth-oriented essay. This is probably the little bit more personal essay, right? Curiosity can be seen in many ways. Please share an example of how you've demonstrated curiosity and how that has influenced your growth. It's funny that the head of my daughter's school, she's 5, talked about catching curiosity and how important it is to teach toddlers to catch curiosity at an early age. And now we see this coming up here, right? They want to see how you're curious. What have you done with this curiosity? So these are some things to keep in mind. First of all, ignore any old advice that you see. Ignore past successful essays. I know there are many books that are for sale that sell essays, sell HBS essays. Don't buy them. If you have them, don't read them. They're not going to be helpful anymore. This is new, right? They haven't changed their essays in a long time. And so if you read the old stuff and you try to do what other people have done or what your friend did to get in last year, it's not going to help you to get in this year. So try really not to pay attention to a lot of old things. Anything that was written, honestly, before June 25th of 2024, I wouldn't spend a lot of effort, looking at that. They changed their essays because, it wasn't getting what was needed, right? So there's, a lot of stories. They don't want long-winded, right, irrelevant tales. I don't need a sob story. Everyone has different things that happen to them. And the reality is you won't get into school based on what's happened, right? You could be a billionaire and have had no challenges, or you could have grown up in poverty, right? That won't get you accepted. Now, that might be one of the reasons why you are accepted, because of what you've done with that challenge, right? But the challenge in and of itself doesn't really matter, nor does the lack of challenge matter. We don't want to just talk about the resume, all about you. Consider the elevator test, right? At the end of the day, HBS gets more qualified candidates than they can take, like way more qualified candidates that they could take. And sure, part of them are not qualified and they have no business applying, but most people could do well in a class at HBS. You want to be someone that you're fun to be around, right? People want to talk with you. People want to go out with you. They want to get, drinks if you drink, or food if you don't drink. Kind, thoughtful candidates. This is important, especially for Harvard. They want kind people, right? They want people that are passionate. Humility is not a bad thing. At the end of the day, you probably have accomplished a lot. If you haven't accomplished a lot, you probably have no business applying to Harvard. If you have accomplished a lot, it's evident, right? It'll be in your resume. It'll be in the rec letters. You don't want to just throw it at them so much that they think, oh, who's this guy? And he thinks he's so hot and, he doesn't need to grow, right? You want to grow. You're young, right? You have a lot to do. I have a lot to do to grow too, but certainly, you do as well. So let's dive into the essays a little bit. Okay. Essay 1, deep dive. Businesses, organizations, communities, right? Expanding your career aspirations. This is a goals essay. Reflect on how your experiences have influenced your choices. So why did you do the things that you've done? What's the reasoning behind the goals, right? So if you want to go, let's say you're in tech and you want to move from being an engineer, right, to being a product manager. What are the reasons for that? What are the core things that you want to do that you're not doing now? Maybe you are good at coding and good at analyzing things, and but you want to be the decision maker, figure out why the decisions are made for the products or services that your company offers. And thus you want to get to product management to try to drive some of these decisions, right? When you want to be a director of product innovation at a high level, to think about corporate level innovation. So not just the product innovation, but corporate level. Do we have the right types of products? Do we want more products, fewer products? Show them that you're going to make an impact. They want to know the impact you'll have on businesses, organizations, and communities that you plan to serve. And so you really want to think about the greater good here, right? This is different. If you write a Wharton essay, they don't ask this. Now, it's not bad if you include something, but they don't ask this, and it's not required. They really want to see this impact. So not just I'm going to make money, but what else am I going to do to help others? And that's a little bit of a sort of nuanced thing to highlight here. Then you have leadership-focused essay. And Raja, in a second, I'll ask you a question about any leadership things that you learned at Harvard. So leadership-focused essay. What experiences have shaped you, who you are, how you invest in others, and what kind of leader you want to become. If you have a unique story, maybe this is where we, put it. Maybe upbringing, extracurricular experiences, right? Things like that. You need to have past leadership experiences, but it's more than just one. Kellogg has an essay about leadership. Do not copy and paste your Kellogg essay. If you do, you probably won't get it. They ask one time where you were a leader. Here they want what experiences have shaped you. So they kind of want to get a sense for multiple things. Now, Harvard is different. I keep talking about other schools, but it'll still be helpful. MIT likes to know about things that have happened in like the last 2 to 3 years. Don't give a 5 or 7-year-old example for Sloan. Harvard is okay with that, right? They want to know your life. What are all the things that have made you who you are? And this whole investing in others, that's hard. Maybe you haven't done this. Now, look, it's the end of October. Let's say you haven't done some of these things. Rather than trying to make something up or fluff something up or write an essay that's not very good and it probably won't, work out, it's not too late to do things, right? If you haven't invested in others, start to do that. Like maybe create something at work where you're creating some new mentorship program for the interns, or you're training college kids, or again, it's not a ton of time left for this year, but there's still enough time. So if you don't have a good example here, maybe it's time to start doing something. Be specific and succinct. 250 words is very short. So if you took everything that I said and put it in words, right, we're probably gonna get more than 250 words. So you have a very, very small number of words to be able to tell the story. And you want to show why other people, really want to have you, right? And they'd be lucky to have you as their leader. So there's not necessarily like anything that's too cliche here, but it's important to just really be honest. Suraj, I guess based on your, experience, anything come to mind? What are some things that you learned about being a leader? Any kind of classes that you remember enjoying?
Yeah. So, I think a couple things on this. In terms of being a leader, the classes that I enjoyed the most at HBS were actually around investing, entrepreneurship, and there's a class called Lead, actually, which combines a lot of learnings from different types of leaders, whether it's CEOs and founders of companies. There's been huge companies that have started for my class, from Coupang, which is like a $30 billion company, Grab, Taxi, Hinge, which is a popular dating app I'm sure folks have heard of, and Stitch Fix, many others. And so that's the proof in the pudding that there's people who have learned from classes like Lead and entrepreneurship and whatnot, from the case studies that they go through of really successful leaders and big kind of failures. And that case study method, when it comes to leadership, is just kind of quite invaluable as well. And then the thing that I've found in my essays, which is again the thing that I'm weakest at and that Scott really helped me most with, is they, HBS in particular, they want to accept people. This is the kind of maybe the best way I'd say it. They want to accept people that they know are going to be really successful and technically don't need the HBS degree to be successful. So I think they'd really want to see, all of the raw ingredients that you all have in, being a leader already. And it can't just be that, I started a, stock club and I founded that. Oh, and I was a leader because I started a chess club and I founded that. And I was also a leader in, baseball. And so the key thing that, I learned a lot from working with Scott is, in my situation in particular, I was able to tie together my leadership experiences in terms of my passion for computer science and technology and community service. So I had founded an organization called SeniorNet that taught computer skills to senior citizens. I had done a program at NASA Sharp Plus, which was and got a Siemens Westinghouse prize for that. And so that was another computer science thing. And, I had a number of other computer science and community service related leadership experiences that I kind of all tied together in the essays. So that's an important thing. I think, you want a through line, tying everything together. So.
Great point. Thank you. So let's jump to essay 3, right? This growth-oriented essay. Curiosity. Share an example of how you've demonstrated curiosity. and how that has influenced your growth. This is the hardest essay. So if you're like, ooh, this is tricky, it is. Curiosity can come in many, many forms. Intellectual curiosity, professional curiosity, the implications, right? That's more than the story. They want to know how you think about things. They want to know how you got to be where you are today. And they're trying, like Roger said, right? They want to get people who will know how to be successful and will know how to ask the right questions and prod in the right areas so that they can get to where they need to be. And they can surround themselves by the right people. And you want to take risks. You want to have a growth mindset. So there's not a right answer here. And it's funny, we saw who got invited to interview this year and who didn't, and read through the essays again and analyzed them as we always do at Personal MBA Coach. And those that worked out, they were honest, right? This wasn't like, this is not another essay where you want to just write all the great things that you've done. Please share an example, right? That's one. So one example, not many, not your whole life story. One example where you demonstrated curiosity and you did something. You thought something wasn't working right at the office. We always created these pitch decks in this way, or I'm on the sales team, and whenever we get a new account, here are the things that we did. And I thought, well, that seems whack. Why does that happen, right? So I created a new process. Maybe I'm in consulting and new client onboarding happened in this way, or new training happened in this way, and I decided to do something different. Now, these are all professional examples. This can be personal too, for sure. Something, this person's holding up a beaker, so clearly, like, we're thinking about something. I'm curious, something around water treatment. If you're an environmentalist and everyone's really thinking about water and improving water quality, but nobody's really going at it in the way that you think they should go at it. And so you come at this with a different approach, right? And that's what they're looking for. They want to have innovative things, different things to show that you are challenging. Now, it doesn't have to be a success. Note, nowhere in this essay does the word success come. So this doesn't have to be like, oh, I changed the entire way that like water treatment is done in North America, right? They're not looking for that. And influence your growth. Maybe you approach something in the wrong way and you were not successful in doing it. But maybe when you were not successful, you learned a lot about how to navigate challenging situations, how to communicate with difficult stakeholders or something like that. So these are just some like sort of basic essay writing things to keep in mind. And you're going to brainstorm, outline, draft, proofread, write authentically, ensure that the essays really fit with your personal story. And I guess one more thing I'll point on this. We'll actually talk more about this on Monday. So if you want more like essay content, come Monday and you'll see another webinar. And make sure to like this video, comment it, and share it. But the other thing is keep the language approachable. So that's one thing to kind of highlight on before we jump here, in that these are real people reading your essays, and especially at Harvard, they're often business people, right? Like more so than other schools. Harvard Business School hires a lot of professionals in similar roles that you're in, or that you were in, to be reading essays, and so they know you, right? They know who you are. They're and so don't try to write something that just sounds really, really impressive. So in case some of you came late, I'll just sort of go over a little bit about us, and then we'll go into our process, and we'll chat more about Harvard as well, and then we'll go into questions. So number one, rated consultant globally. Last year we were also the top boutique firm for the last 2 years. Our clients get in with 96% success rate for the last 17 years. Boutique, family run, and we work collaboratively. And so you'll have one main consultant that works with you throughout the entire process, but they're not working in an island. They're not doing the essays and the founder's not involved or anything like a lot of firms are. That's what leads us to do really well, and got over 11 million in scholarships, and very closely networked with these decision makers, with the schools, friendly with multiple 8 HBS professors, and we'll talk with the mission. And there's a lot of knowledge around the school and what they want and what's changing. It's funny, Harvard actually tries to change and adapt a lot of things. There are a lot of meetings where they're changing things, adapting things, looking at structures and content. But then they come at this with like, here, we know everything. And so this is the process and we're going to teach it to you. And so when they want to see someone who's a leader, they want to see a time when you've also made a change, maybe even within an organization that wasn't very receptive to change. So I'll talk a little bit about what we do here, and then we'll get into more about Harvard and chat a little bit more. Maybe we'll talk to Raj about like things he liked about Harvard, maybe things he didn't like about Harvard, any other advice he might have. So tutoring, we talked about tutoring earlier on. If you need help, we do GMAT, GRE, executive assessment. Harvard does not take the executive assessment, but if you're applying to other schools, they do. We help with all the parts of the process and all parts of the life cycle. So if you're in college and you're applying, deferred, ramping up. We do a lot of deferred work, and we can certainly help you to think about your story. It's like a 3-tiered goals if you're in deferred, the right after college and post MBA, and then the long-term goals. And we're going to brainstorm, right? Figure out what your plan should be to make sure that your goals are super clear and specific and realistic. Help you with the school selection. Of course, Harvard Business School is great, but when 1 in 10 people get in, you should have other schools as well. Usually people do like 6 or 7 schools. And then help with the resume editing, all the essay editing. We have essay guides for all the schools, guidance on rec letters. This is a quick overview. I'll give you a more detailed overview if you are looking at hiring a consultant. Reach out, schedule a consultation. We're happy to chat. We do not offer free profile reviews, unfortunately. I do all the calls myself as the founder. And so if you're interested in hiring a consultant and you have the budget, I'd be more than happy to talk with you about whatever you'd like, but we don't offer just profile chats. And then rec letter guidance. Who you want to ask, what things they should write about. And then we do interviews. We have a team of former interviewers. Everyone that does the interview prep for us used to be an interviewer at one of the top schools. So Raj, I guess back to you for a little bit. What are some things you maybe liked about Harvard? What are some things maybe you didn't like so much?
Yeah, what I liked most about HBS was the just incredible network of folks that I met and all the opportunities that they provided in the classroom as well as outside the classroom to really get to know your classmates. In the first year, you're with your 90 section mates in every class for the whole year. So you really develop a really good bond with them in class and outside of class. And then being blunt, there's a policy that they have about not publishing or reporting your own grades, which is really helpful so that it's not as competitive, for folks, needing to be the top, top 1%. I mean, there's bigger scholars and whatnot, but other than that, there's not the 4.0 GPA system and all that. And so, you get your jobs afterwards or your internships in between your first and second year, based on not your grades, which just allows just for a lot more socializing and fun and networking with your classmates. So I found that really, really helpful. The thing that I think maybe I didn't like is that I wish that they had some sort of a buddy system that they set up, where you would, if you asked for it, you could be set up with a buddy, that's a graduate of HBS a couple of years out, so that you could just learn from them and whatnot. So I get emails, sometimes from folks who are from MIT or HBS, and often I just, I just don't have time, and I end up not being able to respond. But if there was kind of a formal buddy system, you'd have people opt in, and I think that would be a really cool win-win for all sides.
Cool. So we'll come back to Raja in a couple of minutes, but let's go to some questions. So we'll start with Q&A now, because I know people often have a lot of questions, and we'll also keep going back and forth. We've been talking about Harvard as well. There's a question about 100% scholarship. So Harvard does not offer merit-based scholarships. They offer need-based scholarships. So that's really just based on your financial situation. I'd recommend talking with the financial aid officer. Now, they're very good about need-based, and a lot of people get a lot of aid. Whereas other schools, they'll try to buy you, right? So our so the 11 million that I talk about, that's all merit-based. Need, I don't track, and that has nothing to do with us at all. So this is all merit-based, and other schools will give you money if the application is really good, the essays are super strong. That's where we come in. We're not going to get you money at Harvard, but we could get you into Harvard. So that's one thing about Harvard that's maybe a little bit different from some other schools. Stanford offers a little bit of merit based. It's very hard to get. And then as you go down, Wharton and Booth and Kellogg are very good at merit, and then on down you'll get more. But Harvard, it's all need based. So then there's a question about test score range, right? So there's test score ranges from 540 to 790, right? And these are obviously in old numbers. What do you think would be the reason for below average score admission? So it's a good question. We see ranges. I mean, I got a guy once, and this was not a minority candidate. Sometimes you think race comes into it, which it does. But this was not a minority candidate with a 2.9 GPA got into HBS years ago. That was hard. That was very hard. Look, different things happen, whether it's low GPA, whether it's low test score. They're looking to get a well-rounded class. And so it might be the case that, they need someone that looks like you, right? Maybe it's the country that you're from. Maybe it's the work experience that you have. Maybe it's some kind of leadership thing that you have, or some nonprofit that you started that's attacking an issue that they didn't see. One of the admissions directors told me he took two. He's a former director. He took two people from WeWork one year, and really was looking forward to them contributing to the case studies. Back when WeWork was having its challenges. Not that they're not now, but anyway. And so that was very helpful. If they had worked at, Billie Jean's tire company in Kansas, right, that might not have been as valuable, right? So these are real things that could have an impact. Usually the really low numbers come from, honestly, an underrepresented background where they're looking to get a diverse mix of students. And if they like the leadership and the impact and everything else that you've done, and you've helped your community, then that can work in your favor. So here's a question: with HBS moving from an open-ended essay to 3 new essays, primarily focused on pre-MBA career, do you see any change in the pattern of HBS interview questions, i.e. less emphasis on pre-MBA work? That's a great question. Well, so I can tell you from conversations I've had with admissions about interviews, and I might know a question that they're actually asking folks at the beginning of the interview now, which is actually a little bit different than previous years. Overall, the answer is no, there aren't large-scale changes. Now, that said, we haven't seen 100 interviews yet. Our clients have interviewed, but it's only round 1 and it's only late October, so we're sort of in that cycle now. But they're still interested in what you've done and why you've been successful and some of your interests. I'd say pay attention to some of your the small details that you write in the application. You might think it's not important, but it might actually be important come interview time. So overall, no, that doesn't change. Harvard's going to grill you, right? They read your whole application. Sometimes schools, so Stanford has blind interviews, and Wharton has blind interviews, and Kellogg and Booth and Columbia, right? Most of these schools have blind interviews, and so they're not reading your application. The person interviewing you has no idea who you are, what you've done. They just have the resume. Harvard is not like that, right? They read the entire application, and they spend a lot of time. They could spend up to an hour. That's true. Just preparing for that interview. So your interviewer comes and they know your application maybe better than you do. And they'll come with very, very specific questions, either to try to learn more, try to have a conversation, maybe try to catch you off guard, right? See what the detail is. So we had someone that was working for a technology company doing internet, and wow, the level of detail they got into about internet, Google Fiber in Boston, why it didn't work. So many things that if you weren't prepared, you're just screwed. That's the kind of thing you want to think about when it comes to interview prep. I guess while we're on that topic, and if the answer is no, Raj, we'll just move on. Anything you remember from your interview that was surprising for you?
I think the interview, I thought about this a lot. The thing that they really, really don't like is arrogance, and they test a lot for that. And they really want to see someone that's just really humble, is nice. And if you have even a whiff of cockiness, or you belong here, then that's just the easiest way to get kicked out. And that's just, people, I think almost universally, when I can think of people who got the interview and didn't get it, it's just because of that reason. So literally, like, just don't do that. And I think other than that, for my, it was a long time ago, of course, but, I remember, getting guidance, and we did this practice interview, Scott. I don't know if you remember it, but I mean, it was pretty awesome. I mean, and they actually did it. It was just super helpful. Like, Scott pointed out, like, a couple of the areas where, like, you don't say like, I achieved this, or like, I did this, it's, just, talk about we, and, all the things you learn from the achievement and whatnot. So that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. I know it's definitely a good point, because you think about the need to impress someone, and so that might lead you to sound like you're really good at what you do, but then that could just come to, kind of hurt you in the end of the day. People talk about rounds a lot, and so, a question of the rounds, right? Round 1 or round 2, what's better? So here we are, it's the end of October, or whenever you're watching this, could be, who knows. You've missed round 1, obviously, right? And so the option is to apply round 2, or to wait and apply round 1 next year. They don't have a round 3. So those are the options. Very easy. 2 options. What's the better option for you? Well, I don't know who I'm talking to, so I don't know the answer. But what I can tell you is some of the things to think about. One is age. Harvard does not like older applicants. I have a chart on my computer, which I don't think I can share because I don't think it's public. But in any case, it shows like the number of people, per like numbers of years out of school. And let's just say that 4 or 5 is going to be high, as you know, right? That's kind of the median. But as you get down to 8, 9, 10, it's really, really small. So if you're getting older, and you might wait another, round 1 is better, maybe I'll wait. Well, it might not be better for you, right? Because you have to think about when you're going to be more marketable. The other thing is numbers, right? So we're getting pickier about taking clients this year because we can be. There are more clients out there. More people are applying, right? So application numbers have started to go up, and that's already happening for round 1. So round 1 versus last year round 1 numbers are higher as well. Nothing is public, but I'm telling you it is from all the conversations we're having with schools and numbers and everything like that. And so by next year, the trend will probably just keep, kind of going up that way. And so odds are it might not actually be easier to wait. And they have spots for both rounds, right? So I would say in some instances, like if you know the history of your company and your company sends, 3 to 5 people a year to HBS, it's always round 1. Already 3 people have gotten interviewed. Okay, fine. Maybe don't listen to me, and then you have to wait, right? They're obviously different situations. But overall, if you're just like a candidate applying from a company without, not a lot of that kind of knowledge, I would say round 2 is great. And there's plenty of time to do the work. So that's on the round 1 versus round 2. On the tests, right? Because people ask about GMAT versus GRE and what's better. Harvard doesn't really care that much. The goal is to do well and to have a good test score. On the margin, I do like GMAT better, and I like it better for all schools. Some schools care a lot more about GMAT than others. Harvard is not one of those. But let's say if you're a robot, take the GMAT. It was created by business schools for business schools. The quant is harder. You're probably gonna look a little bit stronger. But if you took the GRE, don't worry and say, "Oh no, Scott said GMAT. Now what?" People get in with the GRE, and you're totally fine. Harvard also is not super hung up on test scores. Why? Because they can, right? They're able to not be hung up because they have so many strong people that apply that if they get a few people with the scores aren't good and they like everything else, who cares? They take them. We've seen people with 700 GMATs, and this is the old scoring, so that'd be like 655 on the new one or 645. Kind of old 700s get in when their colleagues that have 790 don't get in, right? Why? Well, their story is better, they're a better leader, the more things that they're going to get back to the community. So that's about kind of test scores. And then often questions on like recommenders, right? Who's right to write a rec letter? Who's going to be a better person? The younger person, the older person? Do you have experience? Do you not? The years of experience don't really matter, honestly, in the rec letter. As long as they can compare you to others, That's what's important. Don't have someone who their first year managing anyone. Scott was one of the best consultants I've worked with, but I've managed 2, so he was better than the other guy. That's not going to be good. But as long as there's some ability to compare you to others, it doesn't really matter how old they are. It's more important that they're close to you and that they know you, really, really well. Maybe Raj, talk a little bit about, what's the alumni experience like? Because people say that, oh, big school, a lot of the powerful alumni. Like, what does that mean? What do alumni do? What do alumni not do?
Yeah, on the alumni piece, a little bit that I alluded to before, you have to be proactive about it, in terms of utilizing that alumni designation to connect with other alumni, stay in touch with them, and whatnot. You'll have people reach out to you. The thing that I'd say is the closest and most impactful relationships for me were those folks that I actually met really close to my section or in my year or the year above me or the year below me. And then on the alumni side, I'll just be honest, on my side, I just, my career is just one that just ends up being nonstop, super, super busy all the time. So, I didn't, do more kind of networking and, kind of use the alumni designation to, help a ton. But I really just got a ton of value from, the relationships that I built during my 2 years there. But I do know folks, I'll give you an example. My really good friend, Bharat, he's the head of corporate development at Datadog, was a year above me. Actually, also worked at Blackstone alongside with me, a good friend. And he, has a kid, and there's, all these alumni groups that he's a part of for parenting, on career advice, because he's switched careers a bunch of times. And so he's been really proactive about it. And the number of things that he's gotten help with, personally, literally, from things like related to like his marriage, where people like get together and talk about things, to raising a kid, to changing jobs and getting, advice on how to progress. So anyway, you make with it for what you put into it.
That's really important. And that's probably the most valuable thing there is, you definitely, it's what you put into it. It's like anything else. There's so many opportunities. It's what you put into it. For sure. So here's a question from Pooja. Candidates who have 10 years of work experience, should they not apply to Harvard? I would not say you should not apply, because Harvard will take people. Look, it might be 20 people a year, though. It might be a little bit less, maybe a little bit more. It depends on the year. I would want to evaluate you critically and determine whether this is the right program for you, and also how this fits into your overall strategy, right? So we have people with 10 years of experience that get into Harvard. So it definitely can happen. And you could be one of those. But this should absolutely not be the only school. And you should not spend most of your effort on it, because it's so hard with that number of years of experience to get in. We should have a broader range. Typically 10 years, we're thinking about executive MBA. You might have had a little bit more success than your classmates, right? So if you think about, the old Raj, right, years ago, you want to be able to like learn from others and teach others and gel and coordinate. If you're just so far ahead, you might not get as much out of that, right? And so, someone else who'd like love to get an associate job somewhere, they might not teach you a lot. And so it might be a little bit less valuable for you. 10 years of experience, you think about MIT Sloan Fellows, that's an amazing program. Shout out to Sloan. Where everyone has 10 years or more. It's an MBA. It's a full-time program, 1 year, but you have to be experienced. Stanford has a program as well, Stanford MSX, right? And then there's part-time executive MBAs where you can still work. Not to say that you shouldn't apply to full-time. You could definitely do some full-time, but you might want to balance. And as you do more research into these programs, you might find that actually for you, that's going to give you more, and you'll get more out of it. You might not take advantage of the recruiting on campus at Harvard or something, So, these are all things to think about. Similarly, on the other end of the spectrum, if you're really young, you don't have a ton of experience, again, they might still take you, but they might, want to see more of what you've done. As Raja says, they really want to see who can be successful without Harvard, right? And so if they can do that, they need to show what you've done so far. And so if you only have like a year of experience and you're applying, that might make it a little bit hard to show that. From a timing standpoint, as far as like doing essays, order and everything, I often say to save Harvard for one of the slightly later schools. That's a hard application. So if it's your dream school, you don't want to get started with your dream school. You might want to start with other schools that are a little bit easier to get into, and then build yourself up. So those are some things to think about. Harvard, I'm probably giving away too much in this webinar, but anyway, Harvard, they don't like a lot of favors. It's not like a rub your shoulders kind of a school. So let's say you have a friend. Let's say you've got you connect with Raja. You guys hang out and you're like, wow, I got this successful private equity guy. He's going to write a rec letter. Don't have him write a rec letter. Don't ask him. It's not going to do anything. So you want to think about this. Now, in some other schools, that might matter. Having an alum vouch for you, that might, make a difference. But if you have like 5 HBS alums that are writing rec letters, they'll probably just reject you because of that. Because you're not really thinking about how they work and what they value in this process. So just some things to think about. If anyone has any other questions, I'm more than happy to answer. I have a couple more topics that I was going to cover, but one was going to be about goals, and so goals are important, and they're even more important for Harvard now than they were in previous years. Why? Because they have a whole essay on goals. Now they also have a little 500 character piece on goals too. So now it's in 2 places, right? For goals, you want to write something that is going to be very achievable, very realistic. You don't want to take a huge gamble and a risk. And this kind of goes in line with what, Raj was saying earlier about being humble. If you're like, hey, I'm going to be, VP at a, VC fund, or I'm going to be a partner at this venture capital fund. And, it's like, settle down. Like, how many people go into venture capital right after school anyway? Is it going to be you? Let's not get too full of ourselves. I'd rather have you write something that's actually achievable. I'll do consulting, or, there's no such thing as a goal that's too boring. Sometimes people come to me and they say, well, is that exciting enough? And I'm like, do I care? Right? Like the goal is not for this to be a super exciting path. The goal is for you to write something that someone's going to read and think, yeah, that makes sense. I think Scott can accomplish that. I think my school can help him to get there. It seems very logical. These are things that MBA students go and do afterwards. Not to say that you can't take a risk and you can't have a gamble. Sure, people write about entrepreneurship if that makes sense for you. But if it comes out of the blue and you've been working for big companies for the last 6 years and, I don't know, product management or something, and now you're going to go and start this crazy education startup, that might not make sense. They might sit there and think, I don't know that he can do that. And they want you to be happy, right? So the idea behind the goals is that they're very easy. It's funny, my shortest goals essay was this guy, Jano. Jano was working at Bain at the time, and I talked to him about goals. I remember I was in a hotel in California. I was looking out the pool, and it was a 20-second conversation. He's like, goals? What do you mean? I'm going to stay at Bain, and I'm going to be a partner. And guess what? That's where he is right now. So sometimes the easiest answer is actually the best answer. So that's a bit about goals. Probably one more topic to cover today, and then feel free to ask any other questions that you have. The last topic that I wanted to cover was around school engagement, right? And Harvard's an interesting example because people spend a lot of time and effort engaging and researching and visiting and all that sort of thing. And you want to balance this out. So I won't tell you exactly what to do for each school or how much time to spend, but if you work with us, we definitely will, and we'll perfect your entire strategy. Let's say Harvard is not the most interested in engagement, right? So there's no metric that says Raj visited campus 5 times and Billy never stepped foot on campus. That doesn't really factor into the evaluation of you, again, because they just really want successful people. So as you think about spending your time, but MIT, on the other hand, down the road, if you're in Boston, spend a little bit more time at MIT. They care about that. They document that. They track that. If you show up blind, meaning like I haven't done anything and I just submit an application, odds are that's not going to work out. So here's another question. How's startup experience looked at HBS? Do you have to be a startup founder or one of the founding members? So That's a good question, Raj. Based on all your investments in startups, you can chime in here if you want. I'll start. So you don't have to be a founder. I mean, look, most people are not founders of startups, just out there, right? And so you absolutely don't have to be a founder or a founding team member. Startup experience is really, really interesting. And I think the thing about startups is it's harder to evaluate. So it's not that it's not harder to get in if you work for a startup. It's just more work to do the application. And so we have a lot of clients that work for startups, but because the school might not know exactly what you do, or what the company does, or what the rigorous work life is like, or how you've really grown, there's a little bit more onus on you to tell that story, right? If you're at a big company where they take people every year, it's easier for them to know where you are. They could look at the salary, they could look at the titles. It's just very quick to see like how successful of a person you've been. We're startups, it's a little bit harder. But no, you definitely don't have to be the founder.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure, Scott. I think you can put it into two categories, maybe. I mean, one, you can be, at some really hot startup. I'll just make it up, like a Stripe or something, and then you'd have to be. It's just like being at Blackstone or KKR or whatever. These high end, high profile firms, and you just have to show a ton of leadership experience at that late stage startup, hot startup, maybe some AI thing that's maybe even earlier stage, but it's really hot. Or you can be at some unknown thing like Scott's talking about, and it's just no one knows about it, and you have to explain it all and all that. And in that case, you'd have to show the bar is just a lot higher. Just like if you were 10 years of experience, you can still get in. It's just the bar is higher. And so you have to show a ton of leadership experience, and that you made a ton of impact with that startup, and that it's going somewhere. So, I think they want leaders. So that's what I'd say.
Great, super helpful. So look, wishing everybody the best of luck on this journey. Again, if you want some help, we're happy to help. We do have consultations, and we can talk about how we can help you with the process. So visit our website. We'll go through the essays, the profile, timing, schools, and guarantee that you'll be happy, working with us. So people do really, really well, and folks enjoy this process as best they can. Remember to like the video if you liked it. If you didn't, you can send me a tomato, and I'll apologize. And subscribe to this channel. Again, I'll be back on Monday. Sounds like I'm some sort of television. Tune in on Monday at 11:30 Eastern when we'll be talking about essays. But no, honestly, I will be. So come back on Monday at 11:30 Eastern. We'll be talking a little bit more about essays, not just Harvard, but kind of more in depth. So wishing everybody the best of luck, and thank you so much, Raj, for coming. I know it's super busy, so really appreciate you coming here. You guys are lucky to have Raja here today to talk. And thank you, GMAT Club, and everyone for coming, and wishing you all best of luck.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Scott, GMAT Club. Thanks, everyone. Good luck, everyone.